The internationally acclaimed cinematographers Don McAlpine and Denis Lenoir were invited to the Australian Film, Television and Radio School to conduct a masterclass workshop in studio lighting. Don McAlpine began his distinguished career working on news, documentary and drama productions in the early 60s. Don went on to shoot some classic Australian features, such as Breaker Morant and My Brilliant Career, before turning his attention to Hollywood in the early 80s. He has since shot a host of US features, including Predator, Medicine Man and Patriot Games. Paris-born Denis Lenoir is a leading figure in the new generation of French cinematographers. His work on films as diverse as Monsieur Hire, Daddy Nostalgie and more recently the Australian feature Dingo has established Denis' reputation as an imaginative and effective cinematographer. The double workshop was designed to give students a unique opportunity to compare the work methods of two of the world's leading DOPs. Don and Denis each spent 3 days in separate workshops with the students, and each lit the same set and actors for the same director. This allowed students to concentrate on the two individual approaches to lighting and coverage. Joseph Demian, the head of the cinematography department at the film school, had a script. He directed the actors and nominated 4 shots to cover the action.
First thing we want to do is build up the walls a little bit. I approach this as a lighting workshop, not a directorial workshop. It's being a bit simplistic to say that, but in truth, that's why I was here. Basically, to try to get the students to analyse the elements of the lighting within the scene. I think the concept was not to make it a period piece, to make it have a contemporary feel set in the 20s. In other words, not to go back and create a period feel. My brief was to explain the room as well. That's why we stuck to, I think basically 35 we almost used on every shot except a couple of close-ups.
I have much more freedom about, I think, the lighting, because I proposed the day before Joseph to turn off the light at one point of the script, and he said, oh yes, it would be a good idea. So of course it was more freedom. And also I asked him if I had to show the geography of the room, and he told me no, there's supposed to be something before, so the audience already knows it. If you can rise, yes, a little.
The set consisted of a dining room with a raised bay window, double French doors, and a doorway opening to a corridor that opens back into the main room near the stairs. The action is covered in 4 shots. The first begins at the table, where the 4 actors commence their hide-and-seek game. Then 2 exit through the doorway and cross the corridor, while the blindfolded actor finally traps the remaining actress at the bay window.
One real advantage of this shot is, in actual fact, it's a film cut included in a move. You have one scene cut to a 2-shot other scene. It's a very quick transition from that information shot into the drama of the story. So you get a lot of advantages. You get nice distortion on the people, you'll cover the table using a wide-angle lens, you'll have a minimum move, and when they move away from you particularly, you'll have quite a wide scene establishing shot of the room. So we'd start with the Elamac up here, and we'd be looking down, which wouldn't be a bad shot of the table. And when we pull back, we wouldn't be a bad height for the principals. Yeah. All that has to go is this, and I think that's secured by, I can see one screw there, so it's not a major set destruction. You can see what we've done so far. We've ripped this apart. We've given ourselves room to work, and I think that's one mistake we all make very early in our career. Give yourself room to do good work. Don't for the sake of 10 minutes moving stuff around, get yourself trapped in a corner. Next thing, we've set the dolly up here so we can look down on the table with a 25mm and then track back and see the 2-shot. The only problem is, with this gear, even though we've got the low-angle Ronford, is that we're starting to get
just marginally high, but we're right on the edge of where we should be for the actor's eye line. We're just a little above their eyes. These are the things you've really got to think about, because when you start using things like dollies and grips and all the rest of it, if you can really rationally go through where you're going and learn to start using tape measures and know that your gear will give you, this will be your minimum lens height, and you go back and you really work it out before you start wasting a lot of people's time and effort, because to get all this in and then find it doesn't work is a real waste of everyone's time and energy. Okay, you ready to go?
Yes. And if you check the videos,
The actors are brought on set to block through the action. A video split enables the group to watch the framing and see exactly what action they are to light. With the framing set, Don then turns his attention to the practical lights.
Around about here, we get 1/4 of light off these. The first thing we can do is play with these and take them up to about I've got to be careful, 270. 270? Yeah. And just watch what happens when you apply 270 to these. Okay. Now 260, 270. Now they run. Sometimes they explode, but not very often. And that's now got that up to about 2.
That's max, by the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
What, 2 there?
No, 280.
No, over here where my hand was.
sorry.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, right. 2.
2. What do you read back on that wall there?
It's 1.
1. We have the back of the set lit more strongly than the foreground. Convention says that you keep the background down a stop. I think a convention's not a good thing to go by in that regard. In this instant, you'll find that with all that detail back there and the perspective we're getting and the way it's fallen, it'll be rather nice to have that brighter in the background. And this is what I love to do with lighting, is do what we've done and bring in the practicals the way the room would roughly be, and then look at it and say, now, is this working for me or is this working against me? And most times it works for you, because it can give you the clue on how the scene should look realistically. It so happens that when you come over the table and come back up here, a few things happen. You end up on this side of it. So we're immediately presented with the possibility of, on the foreground people, of introducing a pretty strong side source here that they'll believe. You could use a small soft light, which would be out of frame here, and bring that in to key them. The next thing is, of course, we do have to get some base fill here, and we're going to have to put some rather diffuse source here. They're the basic simplistic elements that I see within the scene. Now, we've got to build up the whole ambience in this room, I'd say about a stop, but we want it to be non-source light. So, to get this plan underway, we're going to have to produce some sort of a bounce from here to go back into that area. Probably a 4x4 on a C-stand up there, and just to keep the floor clear for the actors, bring a spot from over there onto this. All right? Now that will then light that area, and she won't throw a shadow particularly. And the fact that she'll warm up around here doesn't matter, because by then we're over into here, right? The other thing is whether, if we get back here on a small soft light with a grid on it, we got a 1K soft, that will be just the basic start of the lighting, right? That's not the, then I've got to look at it and dress it from there.
The first step Don took was to increase the voltage of the practical lamp above the table from 240 to 270 volts. This raised the output of the 2 photo crescendo bulbs from f1.4 to f2. He reduced the flare from the lamps by applying carbon with a candle. Then, to cover the action in front of the table, Don used an Inky with a 300-watt Mizar lamp as a key, and another bounced on foam as a fill. To increase the overall ambience in the room, Don bounced a grid-mounted 1K spot from a large piece of foam. Near the stairs, he added a 1K soft light. In the next sequence, Don will fine-tune this setup, adding a soft light suspended over the table, an additional soft source from outside the set, and by adjusting colour temperature.
This one.
Even though the practicals were being run at their maximum voltage, their
29.
colour temperature was still considerably warmer than the studio lights.
This one.
To achieve a more even colour balance, most of the studio lights were gelled with a 1/4 CTO.
So then everything's quite orange.
Yeah.
And if you didn't want it to be that orange, would you tend to correct that?
I could print that into a blue night scene if I wanted
Yeah,
to.
I'm just asking, where would you correct that? Would you correct it on the camera or in the lab?
Oh no, I'd always correct it in the lab.
Right.
I certainly wouldn't start putting a blue on the camera. I just lose speed here.
Yeah.
Here.
4.5.
4.5. Flood it just a little bit. What do you got there? Keep your meter in there. While the guy's on a light, you've got to keep working.
1.43.
1.43. So that's good, and that's a.
That's good, Joe.
Right. Okay.
Don, we're going to gel that light though?
Yeah, we are. Sorry, you've caught me out. Right, gel it and spot it.
We're just waiting for the gel now, Don.
Okay. What are we getting over here? This is still, we haven't solved our trouble area. Is that bounce giving us much over here?
Half 1.42.
If we let them come out here for what's the major part of the scene, they're sort of vanishing. They're not relieved. A little bit of relief from this side. I'd sneak a very, very gentle light, unexplained, in here, which will give them just a little edge down here. We're never going to see in the corner of that room, so I don't have to excuse it, right? And if we had it, it wouldn't really worry me. And the other problem still I haven't solved is what to do with this bloody table. What do you got down there? It's all building up now.
2.5.
2.5. This shadowed area here, produced by the
1.43.
143. If anything's overlit in this whole scene, I believe the table should be. And the table isn't quite yet telling the story. It doesn't look like one of the great nights, right?
Candles.
We've got the candle lights to come. That would help. The other thing we could do would be actually hang another light on either side of this. And one of the greatest things I always have is a full range of those Chinese lanterns. They're easy to rig and you can hang them on nothing. What I'd be confronted with would be bringing in two small soft lights with diffusion, directing them down, right? Which mechanically is quite a difficult thing, particularly in this situation, right? You could, I don't know where your edge of frame is, whether we could boom something in to get it over there and direct it down on the table, but the light should come down. What stop we got there now on that? Still looks a bit bright.
288. That's your body maybe. A little bit there. Still clicking 4.
Okay. What's that now,
288.
I like the look of it, don't you?
Because this light here has been diffused as it is and it's not boxed in around the sides, isn't that really starting to shed a lot of light out onto elsewhere and really flatten things out as far as the actors are concerned?
It is building up, right? And remember that the camera's looking this way. Okay, do it, pull it. Okay. It's building up the whole scene, there's no two ways about it. But not, it's still a backlight for what's our principal action. So it's not going to sort of destroy the scene. It's not throwing a lot of light on the wall over there. It really is still just pouring down here. That's what I think.
To make the dinner plates appear whiter, the overhead soft light was not gelled with 1/4 CTO.
And action.
Once the lights were placed, another rehearsal was held to make final checks.
We need one little trim. This thing isn't in the right spot. Did you notice that? A big trap. Everyone sits there watching the video.
I just want to tell this.
Watch the scene. Video will get you in a lot of trouble. What happened there was he covered her entirely because that's too low. So we should lift that quite considerably and maybe even bring it around a little bit there. Just for lighting, could we check your meeting positions, the two of you, the blindfold tying position? So we got big problems. We've still got to keep coming, I'm afraid. Dan. Just bring it to there. Just hit me while I'm looking. Okay, that's good. We don't need that much, but you can almost do it from that stand, I think. I'll just get this supported first and then we'll get a reading. Most rehearsals but the last one, you didn't get to the position where you blocked the light on her. You did on that last one. So just be a little, come around as far as you can without getting in the way of this. Where you are now is quite okay. We do want to get her around a fair way, but there's a limit to how far we can do it.
Action!
And you're it! You are.
Don used the workshop to demonstrate solutions to a range of common lighting problems. The first problem the scene presented was the practical lamp above the table. Using the latitude of the stock and by subtly adding lights to this dominant source, Don successfully used the practical to provide interest and dimension to the lighting design. The strong backlight it creates for the foreground actors is supplemented by the careful use of the key and fill lights Don placed. When the actors move away from the table, we can also see the effect of other practicals and lights Don positioned near the stairs and off the set to camera left. When Denis Lenoir came to light this same scene, he was to take a markedly different approach. Denis was very conscious that his workshop followed Don's, and before he started to light the scene, Denis requested two major changes. He modified the action to include the interior lights being switched off by one of the characters, and he also removed the overhanging practicals, replacing the one above the table with candles.
My desire to change a lot the things was also because I was very impressed by working after Don and wanted in a way to avoid this competition. So by doing it by night and turning off the light, I knew that it would be different. And also I would like to add that I found it very weird to have this man with a candle in just plain light, normal light on, and the candle. I think the man would look ridiculous, and no pleasure for the three of us. And I think the pleasure would be greater in more or less in the dark. So that's the reason, in fact, and not only because I wanted to cheat, that I asked for this thing.
At this point in the workshop, Denis is observing the effects of the practical lamps on the lighting of the set.
For instance, here, I like very much, which is the light which is done by this lamp. The wall is already quite lit here, but darker around there because of the shade. It's stronger around here on the paint box. It's already perfect. So I don't know which stub would I have around here. But I would say I wouldn't probably measure, I want to measure it around here, which is an average place. And I have already 2.8, which is far enough. That means that I don't need more lighting in this area for the moment. Maybe if somebody is staying here, of course, it will be very black and I will need something else. But speaking of the set, it is exactly perfect as it is. And I think I would kill everything if adding some light. This, I think, by eye, is a little too strong. So probably we will have to dim it a little. This is obviously too dark. We will not be able to shoot with only these things. Finally, yes, we choose for these two lamps turn off. And then when they turn off the light, we would keep the light coming from the corridor to the chimney. We would turn off these three lamps, which is this one, the small one, and the supposed lamp around here. What I would like, but probably we don't have it here, is, you know, this Japanese paper lanterns, and we can put in it some 250 watt bulb. I'm thinking of this for this lamp table, because it's going to be softer than that. we can put it just above the camera line. And we can also, with black paper, cover some part of it. It's very useful and very cheap. Now I'm working for the apartment before they turn off some lights. So for the moment, it is like this. And then when we will turn off the light, this one, or maybe many of them together, at the same time, I will turn on the light coming from outside. Because in my opinion, when you are inside an apartment, a room, with the lights turned on, you don't see the outside, it is too dark, and you only see it when you turn off.
So you'll...
Yes, one quite big around here to throw some light there. One, so the first one would be like this. A second one would be like that here for this part of the set. And on the first one, we would use a red head, quite far from it, because I would like to have the whole, the light on the whole thing, not just a spot on the corner of the polystyrene. So a red head for this, maybe 2 red heads, or well, it's better than one 2 case. 2 red heads for the other one, which the one would be like that, for this way. This would be with a smaller bulb, perhaps, or on a dimmer.
There's a 60 in there.
And maybe we could put a piece of whiteboard here and Misa or 250 watts bounce on it, just to give a little something around here. Yes, we need definitely something bounced on the third piece of foam to come around there, like this. Above the table, we will have our Chinese lantern. This, we can forget it.
Denny had chosen to remove the practical overhanging the table, replacing it instead with candles, supplemented by a 250-watt photocrescendo globe in a Chinese lantern. By matching this lighting to the practical sources and utilising the speed of the 500 ASA stock, he was able to maximise the effect of the candles. The rear of the set was lit by 800-watt redheads and a 300-watt inky bounced off foam. 1K and 2.5K lights were directed at the glass door and windows. The 2.5Ks were switched on when the lights in the room were switched off. Finally, an inky lifted the level on the foreground actors.
There's always a big difference between the tungsten bulbs and what they are supposed to be, which is 3,200, and it is never 3,200 most of the time. This is 2,910, but it doesn't matter. It's just a question of, because as they are all the same, it's a little more yellowish warmer than required, but the lab will correct it. But the other thing is that these practical lamps are warmer to 2,500. So, for instance, on this lamp, we're gonna, Yen, I think we will need an 1/8 of 85.
1/8.
Yes, or
Smallest 85 I have is 1/4.
Quarter, or a quarter, to have the same color of what would come from there and the lamp here. Otherwise, this would be cooler. Okay, let's rehearse.
Yep.
I'll do the other side.
Apart from some fine-tuning Denny is to make after this rehearsal, the lighting is set. The Chinese lantern above the table, the light from the glass door, the bounce near the camera and from the foam board above the set on the left are all soft sources, building the scene. The effect of the handheld candles enhance these sources, leading up to the moment when the lights in the dining room are turned off and simultaneously the 2.5K outside the door is switched on.
Mary, can I please have a look at you when you are tightening the... That's okay. Can I have a look at you now? Looking more or less here, I think. Not me, but you look my hand, sorry. Yes, thank you, that's better. Thank you very much. Okay, Joseph.
Okay.
The soft flickering light playing in the roses, the dancing flames and the reflections in the vase and the champagne bottle. And finally, when the camera slowly moves up from the table, the warm highlights created on the actor's face are all effects made possible by the fast stock and the removal of the overhead practical light. In the background, Denny creates highlights with light on the fireplace, the practical on the table, and the light filtering through the curtains. For the time the actors are in their forward positions, Denny's setup creates less contrast than provided by the overhanging practical used in Don's workshop. The soft light from the Chinese lantern and the bounced fill are the primary light sources falling on the actors' faces. This, of course, changes when the candles are reintroduced and the action moves away from the camera. Finally, when the lights in the dining room are switched off, the bounced light from the redheads above the set create the impression of a practical light source coming from the corridor.
Spinning around, and I'll point where I think the camera should be. Come around. You should be around here by now. Keep coming. It's a pretty fast move. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Right up as far as you can. And you're holding...
Yes.
About that?
Yes.
Looking at the way these people play it, and they seem to play it best as a little ensemble group, we'd be well advised to stay a little wider. Okay? Now, the troubles begin. How are we going to get this to be a little bit more interesting? We come right across here. We can't do anything other than use that practical. What's that giving us?
Half 1.42.
What can we put there? Nothing much, can we?
Drill a hole, smash a hole.
No.
Another electric load.
That'll solve our problems.
We'll get another light bulb.
Yeah, we'll put a 75 in there. See, the point I'm trying to make is if we can keep this up pretty high here, then we have, see the moulding?
Yeah, we have
Yeah, a bit of something coming through.
You want to run that at 1040 or?
Yeah, right up the top, see what happens. Now, what do you got there?
2.
Yeah, and what you got 2?
Yeah, 2, sorry.
2, 2. Well, that's a heap, isn't it?
Yeah, and you bring it a bit
Yeah,
more. It
and
can
it's
be
and
2,
it and it, does it look good? Is it going to look more interesting?
yeah, I think so. You got a graduation.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
one source.
what fill are we getting from this? If that's a fill.
Yes,
Now go over near the door because that's where the action's going to be. Are you shading?
shading.
You know, that's right. What's the shadow of your meter?
That's-
See the shadow of the meter on the wall?
Yeah.
You know what you're shading then. Yeah. Now you actually, yeah, right. What do you got there?
It's 1.07.
So I think we'll probably still go back and maybe off your arm that you had that soft light on, put a bounce up here and come in a little bit, come over that wall again. And we'll probably just use a lot less of it than...
Yeah.
But I just, this will have more drama in it than the previous scene we shot. Okay, now what's that giving us in our base fill over there? Yeah, no, your fill.
I feel sorry.
Yeah, just that's all it needs. Yeah. I'm getting 144, I think. You read. What you get here? No, you're right there. Don't.
Yeah, that's covered.
No, you're covering the lights there. As long as you've got your back to that light, All this is now accumulated fill in actual fact.
144.
144. Okay, that's okay. Okay, so that's a stop and a half down the fill, and we've got two. We're a little bit.
205.
Yeah. So we've got plenty of light back there. Come through and shut that door. That one. Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you think we can do out there that'll be of some interest?
There could be another door there where light is coming from. And it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't have to really be explained. Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be explained. So what would happen if we just put an unexplained little inky up here and shone it straight through that doorway at a reasonable height? Is it interesting?
Well, I think
it could be a bit
more
harder, maybe.
Here we go, lighting by committee.
So that's all right.
Actually, I really have to see them in there. And,
Yeah, well, of course, they're not in it until they get to here.
Let's have a look.
It's only when they vanish back through. But then they get out of it. They'll close the door. So that what you see is this. That's what they do, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, no, it's...
Yeah. So it might be a nice transition going out there, break the boredom. I think you could call on the principal to start rehearsing. We've only got this light to go in by the time they get here. We'll be ready.
Don kept many elements from the previous setup. To improve the key light around the doorway, he increased the output of the small practical and then added to the fill with a 1K bounced off foam mounted above the table. Lights were directed at the scenic flats, and as a final touch, a backlight or kicker was added to the light from the corridor.
Because one thing about looking at mine is this gives you contrast. I mean,
Gives you nothing but framing.
you reckon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you start lighting to this, you're doomed.
I'm not lying to it, but you can notice that
Oh, yeah,
out there related to...
yeah.
I mean, these things...
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. But it's deceptive. What you feel has got to be is between that meter and the film.
Yeah.
The rest of it's bullshit.
As the camera moves through the second shot from Don's workshop, the relationship of the practical light sources can clearly be seen. When the action moves back to the doorway, we see the effect of the low-angle key from the practical and the additional fill from the bounced light above. When the couple exit through the doorway, they are backlit by the light above the hall.
We could track along like this, but I mean the carpet's here, but we can get rid of that. Maybe we tighten in with them. We go in, so we, as we're tracking across like this, we track in, and as you know, so he tracks past our frame, and we end up tight on the like a tight mid shot on the door.
50.
Yes, in this case we would keep on the 50. Because of,
Yeah, because we start sort of quite wide. Then
too wide in my taste.
Yeah, it is tight.
That's the reason I would like to shift for the 85.
You want to go 85?
No, I would like to see with the actors, because I'm afraid it will be too tight for the second part.
The second shot in Denny's workshop was filmed with the 85mm lens, and the same basic lighting configuration was used as for shot 1. Changes, of course, had to be made, especially when the actors moved into a previously unseen area of the set.
Okay, sorry. We get rid of this foam here. We just turn the red head. We put some 216 on it and go it there.
Now, where is my friend?
There's net up there. You want to let's cut down more?
Yes.
We've got net on.
Net on, it will be fine. This is too much because the backlights always seem stronger than the measure you have. I mean, for instance, if you have a light which gives you 2.8 here, and then you turn around the actor,
the light is giving you 2.8 always, but the angle on the skin makes it very more shiny. So to have the same effect, you have to take maybe 2 stops or at least one on the backlight. So for instance, here the stop is 2.8, and here on them when they go out, I have a little less than 2.8. It is 2.5, something like this. But if you look at my from this angle, not from your angle, but from this angle, it's very bright, in fact. You see, because more brighter than there, from there. Well, anyway. So we turn off the 5Ks anyway here, and we're gonna go with the 1Ks just to have a little effect on the curtains. Can it be the 1K with open barn doors, just to have something on the whole curtain, on the top of it, yes, too, something like this? With this 1K, I don't want the effect inside the room. I just need to have some light on the windows and curtains. Not too high, yes, more, not higher than that, because we need to go inside the room. What I've asked Yen is to put 2 lights each time. At the same time, a 1K and a 2.5K. A smaller unit turn on when it is lit inside, and then at the same time we're going to turn off this and that. We're going to change outside for 1K to 2.5.
Initially, the basic setup remained the same as for shot 1. After a final check, Denny kept the 1K on and the 2.5K was added when the actors switched off the dining room lights. The light filtered through the doorway curtains, only supplemented by candlelight, the 2 bounced redheads and the 1 redirected down the corridor.
What are you going to expose at, Denny?
I exposed for nothing. I exposed for the stop I had at the beginning of the scene.
Which was
2.8.
2.8.
The stops where I put my meter and measure, it's quite the same more or less everywhere. But if I put my meter there is 2.8. If I put my meter here, there is 2.8 more, and there on the other side too. But at the same time, it is not too flat because I measure where there is some light. I don't measure where there is no light. So this is the difference between light and no light, which makes the feeling.
The soft light from the Chinese lantern over the table disappears when the actress switches off the lights, leaving only the light from the candles and the background effect of the bounced redheads above the hallway. Denny has made the corridor a source of light, which will also provide a backlight when the couple exit later in the scene. When the actors reach the doorway, they finally enter the dappled light coming through the curtains that was meant to also illuminate them as they crossed. However, a student had added a new element, and Denny was determined to find the cause of this problem.
I've discovered this morning something I don't like at all about a flag, which I didn't ask for, and which is cutting an amount of light in a place where it's not supposed to be. So let's go there. And I was on the other side and was very surprised. Come on. Very surprised to discover this flag, which I never asked for. It cuts the whole effect of the lamp there, everywhere. The woman here was supposed to have some light coming from there when she turned off the light. You saw on the rushes she hasn't. Of course, I should have seen it when shooting, but I'm using to operate. I will probably, maybe not, but probably have seen it in the camera, but not looking at the video. And the other thing is putting this flag here. So, of course, you kill this effect there, but you kill the light everywhere, and the rest of light you keep is just very underexposed because the flag is very close to the lamp, so he has no cutting effect, he has just a drop effect. It has also a cutting effect, but it's a drop effect. If you wanted to kill the white light coming through here, the good thing would be to put just here, which was out of frame, a black piece of velvet, or I don't know why, or I don't know what, and it would be perfect. You will have the effect without killing anything and without getting this door prevent to be open. Fortunately, the man had a candle in his hands, so even without this light, it was okay. It seemed okay. And I would say unfortunately, because if he had no candle, we probably all noticed that he was in black and go and see what was the problem.
We'll reduce the overall level. We're going to be very dependent on those candles coming down the hallway. So we're reducing almost by a stop the illumination, and we'll open the camera up half a stop. What we want to do is try to get a light coming down through here, keeping it as much off the walls as we can up to the doors, and just backlighting their hair as they cross over, as though it's an extension of this light coming down that way. Now, if we let it spill on the walls, it's going to be enough backlight to create havoc. Have we got a wire for that? Yep. If I put diffusion in it, it's going to spread. Mm-hmm. And as it spreads, it'll go on the walls, right? And I don't want that to happen. So that's why I asked for wire. And then we want to produce quite a strong light coming through both these doors. Maybe we should use a direct light through a frame, as though it's these practicals. As the light comes through and hits these walls, we're going to run into a bounce problem where we're really trying to go for pretty low light level coming this way, coming from the camera. So we're into basically a silhouette sequence, and something like an inky with paper on it to do it, and bring it down into the floor so we've got more control over it. If we got it back here, like we've done over there, we might run into trouble with lighting, with stray light. The other thing we could do would be bring down a harsh, direct spot, which would pick this green up and would bounce, just bounce a bit of ambient light around.
Good shape for the leaves instead
of
colour.
It might sort of serve two purposes. It'll give some detail to this area, but let it still go dark.
To highlight the actors as they crossed the corridor, Don employed a 1K through a frame and positioned an inky behind the other doorway. An inky with a wire was positioned next to the corridor practical, and another was focused on the chair and plant in the stairwell. Then for the back wall, Don only needed to adjust the output of the overhanging practical near the fireplace.
All right.
So I'd say wind it back to 245. So, are we there? Yep. What's that read now? 14.6. I don't know whether I invented it, but I'm about the only one using it. It's a system I love, because I use a Minolta now, and it's 14 and I say decimal 6. It really has worked well with assistants. They say, "What do you mean, buddy?" I say, "See the meter? That's 14 decimal. See that point, decimal point? Yeah, 6. Okay, I got it." And they do it.
We usually just go third open, third closed, line open, line closed.
I mean, well, you're using a system that relates to meters that weren't as accurate. I mean, all you're doing is saying, going back to the old spectrometer where the needle, had 1/8 of an inch to register a variation of a stop. Right?
Yeah, but surely, Don, you've got
not yet,
that's what you
and
consider
go
the iris of the lens.
Oh no, but that's I'm not worried about the iris of the lens.
You're talking about lighting.
I'm talking about lighting levels. Right.
Oh, right.
So, and I mean, I still refer to the iris of the lens that way because it's a very, very definite way. And a line open on such and such is how thick's the line. For me to say decimal 7 means, it's that way. I think it's a far more precise and less confusing way.
Action.
When the actors pass through the doorway, they are lit by the 1K from the dining room as if by the practical above the table. Then they are silhouetted against the background and highlighted by the inky and practical overhead. The splash of light from the practical on the wall to the right, the soft light it casts on the actress, and most importantly, the effect of the candles on the actor's face, were all made possible when Don used low light levels and opened up the lens. By fine-tuning the light levels in the back of the set, Don was able to achieve these effects and at the same time provide rich detail in the background.
I think it's a fixed, more or less a fixed shot for the beginning of the action, which happens around there. And then, as the action will move to this place, we will just come closer. We just have to avoid, of course, the lack of a wall there. I'm wondering, Chantal, if it wouldn't be better to go back to the 85, and then, because here what we are trying to do is to have the two doors on a fixed shot. No, so let's go back. I don't know if it is good things to say, to tell, but exactly the kind of set, I mean, this corner and the shot we are doing here, which is quite boring to do, not so easy to do properly, and you don't want to spend so much time on this kind of thing, because at the end it is probably very short on the screen. So it's better to keep your time and energy for something else. But at the same time, of course, in the films where we are astonished by the lighting, every shot is like on a commercials, which is very well done. And in this shot here, we have more or less nothing. We had yesterday the candles, we had the turn off and on, but at the same time, my way of thinking when working on a feature film is not trying to have something in every shot. I would think at the time that the photography would be overtaking, and I more or less think that the script and the actors are more important than this kind of thing. This is not necessary for the storytelling, but as this frame is quite boring, perhaps with some hard light and highlight around these things, it will be a little more funny or whatever.
For the corridor scene, Denny kept the 1K and the 2.5K. In the other doorway were two inkies through a screen. Above the corridor, a red head was bounced off foam, and an inky focused on the hat stand. Further back was a practical, and the same three red heads bounced off foam, this time with a net cutting the levels at the foot of the stairs. Since Denny used the corridor as a source of light in his previous shot, it was necessary to keep the overall levels higher than the previous scenes. By using a net across the foam as a scrim, he was able to reduce the light from the redheads falling on the actress, while the foreground remains dark enough to enhance the effect of the candles.
The way I work is I like some overexposition on the daylight set, inside, interior. So I put a strong light, like the same as with this street light effect, but it would be a sun effect coming through the window, and with a lot of light on a, how do you say, a bureau. But I always measure with this incident lighting, and I wanted, for instance, I don't know, I would say 2 stops overexposed. So I set everything to have a 2 stops reading, 2 stops overexposed reading on the bureau. And this is okay with me. But in fact, if I wanted to be more precise, I would measure on reflection, because it depends on the color of the bureau. If the bureau is white or if the bureau is black, it is not at all the same effect with these 2 stops of overexposed incident reading coming on it. Does anybody has a grayscale around here? The amount of light to have 2.8. Why 2.8? It is because we shoot here at 2.8, but it could be decide to be 5.6 and measure what do you have at 5.6. 9.
Yep, and it's got
9 1/3, 9.
9 and no, it's 9.
9. Okay.
Okay. 8 2 dots.
Okay.
And 8.
Okay. So now you measure in EV this part of the door,
Right.
And what do you say it is?
So 2 dots.
8 dots? So it will have, it will be like this and not like that. But you know that.
Yeah.
Not this here. This in a pure theoretical exposure, which was 2.8, which is an amount of light to have 2.8 with this incident meter, or 2.8 if you were measuring on the 18% gray card.
Yeah.
Of course, it depends on the printing, because perhaps you think that the face here is too dark, so you light everything and then it's going to be white. This is another thing. But theoretically speaking, at this stage of your work, you wanted to know how this door would look, and it would look like this, which is not white overexposed and so on. And it is not, and of course, the big mistake would be to close your your aperture, as you more or less told me later before, because this is more or less white. You want it to be more or less white. You don't want it to be like this, unless there's darkery and so on. But there's some light here, obviously.
We should put a top light, probably just one of the little inkies, hang down from the top of the set. In truth, if we want to get some effect from this, it will have a visually more interesting effect the higher we get that light. If you put the light down here, it'll have minimal ridging effects, right? If we put it up there a bit higher, it's going to be more of a hair light.
It's easier to avoid
Right.
the flare of the camera.
And in truth, it's got to be pretty subtle, because it is a light that is a lie. I mean, it's a light where we're partially excusing by this source, but if it was strong enough, it would be obvious it wasn't this source and give away a false light source.
In addition to the inky and practical in the bay window, Don added an unexplained source, created by an inky bounced off foam. The light coming from the dining table practical was again supplemented by the overhanging 2K soft light. For Don's fourth and final shot of the sequence, the camera returns to the table. The overhanging practical is again dulled with candle carbon to reduce flare. It highlights the actor as he approaches the table. Subtle highlights on the hair and shoulders of the actress are provided by the inky placed above the lampshade in the bay window. When the couple finally meet, the low level of the fill light allows the actors to be lit by the intimate glow of the candles. Finally, in the resolution of the sequence, the camera returns to the table, lit by the practical and overhead soft light.
I'm wondering with this painting, because it looks like daytime on the paintings because of the sky. Probably we will need the 255, which is already here on the window, to have it perhaps more in reflection on a whiteboard, because it will just go. The idea with this is not to go everywhere on the set, but just here when they will be there. So maybe here, something like that.
On this side.
Yes, and have here a big poly and have the light bounce there. I've put some bounce light instead of direct light as here or there. So I think it's quite nice here on the actors.
In Denny's fourth shot, he directs the bounce light from a 2.5K and the direct light from a 1K through the windows. To lift the fill level, a red head is bounced off foam. Again, the lights through the doorway curtains and the red heads near the stairs are used. The double-wick candles the actor carries become the feature of Denny's final shot. By maintaining a low light level in the room, the effect of the candles can be observed on the white railing and on the wall. As the actress slowly moves back, she is silhouetted against the bay window. Gradually, the warm glow from the candles illuminates her face as the actor draws near. This romantic effect is heightened as she playfully extinguishes each flame, leaving only the highlights created by light streaming through the bay window and the soft fill from the room. To finish his workshop, Don McAlpine demonstrated an approach to lighting a close-up.
You can call it glamour, you can call it sexuality, but the result's the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to make her look particularly interesting, right? And so bringing this eyeline in will, it's in truth about the most attractive light you can use,
Mm-hmm.
As long as it doesn't flatten out.
Mm-hmm. So you're just going to really diffuse it down and just give it a little glimmer?
Yeah. Now, okay, just read this hot side. Right, no, to the light, not to the camera. We're not getting an exposure, we're checking the lighting. It's a different deal.
4.5.
Bevan?
4.5.
4.5, yeah, okay. And what do you get out of this fill? Now, drop it back on the other side of her head. See, if you go there, that's the fill.
You're making the ratio.
Good?
It's not the
Two. Okay, that's still a 4.5, still quite a dramatic ratio. We can take this light a little further away. What's that doing now to the light?
Up. Yep. 2.8.
2.8 there now?
4.
4. And this light is, that's the light that's actually shining. This light is actually quite a happy mistake. You see what this light's doing up here? It's giving a moulding down on this cheek, which I find quite attractive and separating the hair. Yet it's all totally excusable because we know this strong source is over here. How's the ratio look now on the face from the... flash the eye light on and off and see how the ratio should be a little better. How's that look?
That's very good.
Yeah. The trouble is now, we've diminished this, right? It's become a little flat, and also there's a certain unattractiveness being introduced by the side kicker on the nose. You see, I'm sorry to talk about you like this, but so as we come in here, that improves, doesn't it? In some way, this light and that light are starting to work together, right? As I take this one out, that light works against us, right? Put this in and pull the other one. See, it's nowhere near as interesting, is it?
No, you need that.
See, it's become sort of a... So you need both of them at this level.
Yeah.
And the only way to decide the level is nothing to do with meter, but just keep fiddling up, you see it, right? Remember when we looked across the table, she was very brightly lit?
Yeah.
So we've got to sustain that effect, right? So, in truth, I would expose at about... Oh, what do you get directly back here? About 285? Just straight back at the camera.
2.8.
Now you're reading for exposure.
Right in front of the nose, is it?
Yeah, that should have been. But it should be in the same.
2.
2?
No, in front of the nose.
2.8. Sorry.
Drag it over. Drag it over across the nose.
No, you're pointing it at you. You're not pointing at the
camera.
It's critical where you point that thing. Now we're lighting a face. These lights are in close, not good enough. You've got to be right back on a nose. Right back on a nose. You just say, "Excuse me," and smash right in. And realise that the worst thing you can do for the person there is screw up the lighting. It's much better to be a little inconvenient and businesslike and do it. So you've just got to get in and do it. How was it?
2.8.1.
2.8.1. So if we shot this at 2.8.3, it should be all right. Okay? So let's do it. Now you've got to remember how to act. After all this mucking around.
Oh, no.
Each DOP had their own personal style, and the workshops had given the students an insight into their individual approaches, but there were also similarities. Both DOPs started with a practical light source and used them as the basis of a naturalistic lighting design. Where the two diverged was with the use of the overhanging practicals. Don took on the problem of practicals in shot, whereas Denny took a consciously different approach, featuring instead the light from the candles. The aim for both was to provide as many learning opportunities as possible. How does the footage compare? You can be the judge.